Okay, I think we'll make a start. There's some more people joining us, I'm sure, in the next minute or two. Hello and welcome to Pulseway. My name is Andy Elwood. I'm the product marketing manager here, and I'm joined by my colleague Nicholas Gonzalez, who's the real star of the show as we talk through workflow automation. Nicholas, are you there? Okay, that's not looking good, but we'll
Sorry about
carry
that.
on.
Yeah,
That's okay.
I was muted. Hi, everyone.
Right. Okay. So I'll just go through a brief intro, and then we'll hand over to Nicholas. You may also hear from our colleagues Paul and Marius along the way as well, because we're quite excited about what we're going to talk to you about today. So workflow automation. You've probably heard of it, but this webinar is designed to allow you to explore the possibilities of what it is it's allowing you to do. So a brief agenda. I'm just going to talk through very quickly about workflow automation and how it works if you haven't seen it before. Just go through a few of the recent enhancements. There's been a few little minor enhancements over the previous few months, and then talk about the new features that are being rolled out in version 8.4 from today. And then I'll hand over to Nicholas, who will do a demonstration of workflow, including all the new elements that you won't have seen before. So the key thing about our workflow automation is that it uses an intuitive visual editor. And just to show you an example of this, again, Nicholas will go through in more detail. So it's that simple. It's from within the main RMM menu. You can just create the automation workflow with the names, the description, and then you hit next, and then you just get a selection of triggers that you can choose. It's that simple. It's minimal coding. So we'll just pick low memory in this case, and then go to low memory. You can then choose an action. In this example, you can build a condition, run the script, run a task, all sorts of things. So this one we're going to it's a condition, and this one is if free memory is equal to any number of memory, then you can actually go to another step and perform an action. So it's that simple. You just build it up slowly. Here's a list of the actions you can use, including as one new one from today, the run assigned patch policy. But it's literally just the menu. You pull on the things you want to have. You can run scripts that you've pre-built, or use one of our pre-supplied ones. So it is a very visual editor, and it's very easy to build up quite complex workflows. So what have we done since we launched workflows a while ago? So we've created a very simple step that's end workflow. I think all of us have used workflow technology where you've had to write meaningless bits of code just to stop something. So we just have a simple step that says end workflow based on a condition. We've introduced the concept of custom fields, and we're doing more work on that now, which we'll show you later on. And that allows you to use custom fields that matter to you in your workflow condition fields that help you control the workflow even more by using other values that not necessarily come as standard. And also with variables, we've improved that enhancement by allowing you to use inputs and outputs from scripts. So you can then use those as custom field values in the workflow. So you can run an external script, use the output from that script as an input into the workflow. Excuse me. So some of the new features that we have, we will be announcing today is you can now use reference variables in the send email action. So you can actually have variables from the workflow and populate a token in an email. So you've got meaningful emails that can be sent to various people. You can now view the custom fields. Before you could use the custom fields, but you couldn't actually see the value. And so this gives you that extra visibility and extra level of security that you can actually see the values that you're using. You can now use scopes in addition to tags. So with a scope, you can combination of categories of machines, or however you want to divide up your network into a scope, you can use those as part of the condition. And now, as I just mentioned, you can run a patch policy, a pre-existing patch policy, as one of the steps. So you could have a workflow that checks a version of something, and then if it's not there, then you can run a policy to maybe update that value. So where to see the information, just finally, pulseway.com/new, if you don't know, is where we post our new enhancements. And here are the 2 new ones from today to do with workflow. So more detail on extending the RMM with custom fields, and also on the workflow tokens. And with that, I will hand over to Nicholas to start us off on the demo.
Perfect. Thank you, Andy.
I'll stop sharing.
Yep. Okay, there we go. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, let's get started. So today I'll walk you through custom fields, which is a very exciting feature for us. I will walk you through how you can integrate that with scripts, with inputs and outputs. And then I will do a presentation on workflows and show you how everything ties up together very nicely. Okay, so what are custom fields? Why are they important? Where can you use them? So think about them as various data points that you can collect data and show them in your systems, for example, to extend RMM capabilities. Let's say in this case, Pulseway is providing us with CPU usage, available memory, different other data points. But let's say, for example, I would like to capture what's the owner of the computer, if the warranty of the system expired. I cannot do that out of the box. So what I can do now with custom fields is define these data points myself. I'll show you how to set those values for each system, or if you, in certain cases, you would like to have a single value for the entire tenant, and then how you can report them back and see them in the computer details section. In this case, for the example that I have, I've configured a script. I'll show you how to do that in a few minutes. And in this case, the script capture which one is the computer owner, if the system needs a reboot, and the Windows build number as well. So it's a very, very powerful tool that will basically let you extend RMM for systems. There's also a case where you would, for example, like to run a script with a certain configuration, and you can store that configuration string in a custom field that you created as a global field, and then use that in scripts. Another way of viewing custom fields is through the custom fields list, where you also will be able to access the creation panel. So let's create a custom field to see how simple it is. It's just a quick form that will ask us for a friendly name, a variable name, and the data type that we're storing. So we can pick between text, number, booleans, or dates. And then, as I mentioned before, you can select whether or not, you can select the context of the custom field, if it's global or if it's a system. So global ones will only hold a single value for the entire tenant, and systems will hold a value per system. So in the example that I showed before, the build number will be specific for each system. But if I want to store a configuration string to use in a specific script, or I will define that as a global one. Now, global ones have the option to be read-only, which means that I can only edit them through this screen. So if I flip the switch there, I basically lock this custom field to only be edited here, and I protect myself from any unwanted edits from maybe a script or a workflow. For other scenarios, maybe you're trying to collect temporary information. Let's say from a workflow, you want to capture how many times a system service stops per hour. So you can create a custom field of system scope and say that it expires every 60 minutes. What this will do is every 60 minutes, it will reset the value to the default value. Let's say I say it's 5 will be my default value. Every 60 minutes, the custom field will have its value reset to 5. No worry, don't worry if you have any questions about this. We will of course go through it again at the end of the webinar if you have any questions. But you'll understand more how everything ties up together once we review the other sections as well. A way of viewing the values is by, as I showed before, computer details or the custom fields list, where you can see a list of all the custom fields that I have created at the time and their context. If there's system context, it means that there's various values for this custom field, one per system that is actually using the value at the time. And a way to see the list of systems that are using this value, you can just click on the link per system here, and it will show you a model dialog with all the systems that are using this custom field and the actual value that it currently holds. For global ones, because there's only a single value, you will just see the value here. So that's pretty much it for the configuration side. Let's see how we can set values for custom fields. So I have a script prepared here. I will also go through inputs and outputs. I'll do a quick refresh and then show how you can use custom fields in scripts. So something we introduced a few releases ago for scripts is the ability to use inputs and outputs. You can define now variables as inputs or outputs that you can use in your script. Inputs are variables that are going to receive a value that then you can use in your actual script, and outputs are values that you want to return from your script. In order to create an input or an output, it's very simple. Just click on the new button that will present you with a dialog where you just input the name. You select which data type you want to use, just as in custom fields, you can select text, number, boolean, or dates. And as well, you can set a default value for this field, for this input. Now, a very useful feature is to read from a custom field value directly. So instead of setting a value for this input, I can reference it to a custom field. So let's say I want to evaluate the custom field needs reboot to perform a reboot. So then I can create a variable that reads the custom field value, and then I can use this input directly on my script. Then let's cover outputs. In a similar fashion, I can create an output variable that the script will return when it's done executing. So the idea is that on the script, you use your inputs for determining which path the script needs to take, and then if you want to return any value, all you need to do is use this button that we have here to inject this command that will effectively make this output available to Pulseway from the agent. So let's say I define my output called OS version. In this case, it will start with a value of not defined, means that I haven't captured the OS version yet. And the way I'm returning this is by clicking on insert output variable code, hitting the OS version button there, and then it will automatically add that to my script. We recommend not to change this since it will affect the behavior, and you could affect the way the output is returned. So this is an auto-generated code that we provide you, so it's very easy to return the values that you need to capture. If you notice here, I also set this value to set this output to write a custom field value. So what it does is whenever this OS version variable is returned from a script, it will assign its value to the custom field Windows build number. So you can see what I've done here is I run this script on this computer that I showed you before. So this script run for my system, and then it capture the Windows OS version, and then it exposed it as a custom field. Then I can report back in my computer details. So think about it like this: you can have a script that captures all the information that you would like to extend, and then just report that back as custom fields, and you have them available right there in computer details. So this is how custom fields and scripts work together. Another way of adding custom fields to systems is coming very soon. Basically, what we're adding is the ability to edit values on the fly here on the screen. This is not available on this release, but it will be available very soon. And we'll also enable you to assign custom fields to this computer that were not set before. So you don't need to always use script or workflows to define custom fields for systems. Maybe you just want to do it manually. Maybe you know who's the computer owner, or maybe the computer owner changed and you just want to do a very quick edit. You'll be able to do it from this screen. Okay, so now let's go through an overview of workflows. So in order to create workflows, there's two ways. The first way is to import from an existing template. At the moment, we have small library of workflows. If you have any workflows, if you need any workflow templates, please send us an email to feedback@pulseway.com. and we'll add them to the list. This will basically help us enhance our current library with more workflows that you think they're valuable to you. So another way of creating a workflow is from scratch. I can just hit on the create button there, and then I'm presented with very simple form. So I need to give it a unique name, and if I want a description, just to explain what it's doing. And then I have the status switch, which basically controls if the workflow will execute when a trigger is captured. So the version 1 of workflows, the current version, is centered around notifications. So all triggers are notification triggers, which means that when the agent reports a notification, if the workflow is active and is using that trigger, the workflow will kick off. So this is what controls whether or not the workflow will run. This is very useful for when you're just working with a workflow, but you're not ready to have it active. You're making changes to it, or you're collaborating with other people, increasing the workflow. So you still don't want it to run, but you don't want to lose your changes, so you just disable it. Or maybe you just want to pause it temporarily, so you just mark it as disabled. Another configuration you can add is the maximum execution time, which means that the workflow will not run for more than this particular amount of time. This is useful for when you have scripts that run for a very long time, but you know they shouldn't run for maybe, let's say, 4 hours. If it runs for more than 4 hours, you know that there's a problem, and you can opt to reduce the maximum execution time to whatever fits your needs. And then if the workflow exceeds that execution time, that will effectively fail the workflow. So let's cover how to create a workflow from the designer standpoint. So the first thing we need to do is select a trigger. These are the triggers we support at the time. We go through all of them. Again, if there's any triggers that we didn't cover, please send us an email to feedback@pulseway.com. We'll add them. Which we went through all the triggers, all the notifications that we have available, and we picked the most used notifications. So, but if you feel like there's any that we didn't cover that you would like to see, just send us an email and we'll add them. So at the moment, we support application added, high CPU, high ping time, when there's low disk space or low memory, if there's a ping error, if a port is not available, for processes that started or stopped, for when a service stops, for when the computer registers for the first time. This is a very useful trigger for provisioning scripts. If the system goes offline or if it comes back online, or if a user logs in, or there's a website error. So these are the triggers we support at the moment. So the first thing we do is select the trigger. So without an action, the workflow basically will not do anything. So the next thing we need to do is perform an operation. There's two things we can do here. We can add conditions if we want to build a more complex workflow, or we can just trigger an action. The actions we cover at the time are run scripts or tasks. All they need is which script you would like to use. So let's say I use the collect bill number script that I showed before. So you can see here, this script has a specific input called include release, which is defined here. So because this script defines this input, I will be able to set its value through the workflow, and I can override a default value by selecting from the dropdown. Of course, the data type will change depending on the data type that I select here. Because this is a Boolean value, I can see a dropdown field here. But if I have a text input or a date, I will see a calendar, and so on. The number of inputs you will see will depend on the number of inputs that you selected here. Okay, let's go through the rest of the actions. Run task is very similar. It will just run a group of scripts. Then you can add or remove system tags. You can add or remove as many as you'd like. Then we have start, stop, and restart service, which all they need is the service name. Send email, which I will cover in a little bit because we just included a very important update to it. And workflow will let you terminate the workflow at any point in time. Basically, you can decide if you want the workflow to end successfully or if you want it to fail at that point. Then we have change custom field value, which will let you set the value of the custom field, whichever custom field you need. Or for custom fields that are numbers, you can increment that number by whatever unit you'd like. So this is another way of setting custom fields. That's the third way. The first way is through scripts. This is the second way will be by when we release the update that will let you do it directly from computer details. And this is the third way. Another action that we just released in this current release that you have available, everything I'm showing is already available for you to use. So another action we support is the run assign patch policy. If a system has a policy assigned, by using this action, it will trigger that patch policy for the system that reported, in this case, high CPU. Then we have the send alert action. By default, workflows will suppress notification alerts. By default, workflows will suppress alerts. The reason behind it is workflows are centered around auto-remediation. So the idea is that if you get, for example, a system reporting high CPU in the middle of the night, you can automatically fix that problem, and then you don't have to be disturbed in non-working hours. If it's a very important system and that should not happen, you can always opt to send the alert anyway. So you just select the alert, and then you can report with the notification priority that you decide. You can keep the one that it had originally, or you can lower it or raise it. Then the next one is change notification priority, which will not send the alert. It will just change the notification priority on the notifications list. You can choose to delete the notification, and it will be removed from the list altogether. And in this case, because I chose the high CPU trigger, I have the option of killing the top process that triggered this high CPU. Various triggers have specific built-in options. For example, if a service stops, I can restart the service. And some triggers will support specific actions only for those triggers. Okay, so conditions are a very important part of workflows. I will show you how to work with them in depth in a more complex workflow. So let's see here. I set up this workflow that what it does is when a system registers, the first thing it will do, it will check if the system is part of the organization Contoso and if it contains any system tags. If it doesn't contain the system tag provision. If I want to add more rules to the condition, I can just simply click on add, and that will allow me to add more rules to the workflow. So a rule is composed of 3 parts. The first is the parameter that I wish to use. And you can see here I have system parameters, basically the organization, the site, agent group, information about the system. The newly added scope, you can now check the scope of a system to perform, to evaluate conditions. You can check the operating system type, or in this case, you can evaluate the value of a custom field. So you don't only use custom fields for reporting things back. You can also use them as condition rules. So this is a very powerful thing as well. Okay, in this case, if the system is part of this organization and it does not contain the tag provision, then I will run a provisioning script. That in this case, what it's doing is it's collecting the build number, including the release. Then I define on my script that the default value is not defined. So at the start, this is the value that the output will have. If the value was set, then it means that it will not be not defined, and that means that the build number was collected. So in this case, I'm just marking it as provision. What you can see here in this condition specifically, I am using the script output as a rule. So that's another very powerful thing. You can see this condition, the one that's inside the main condition, has another parameter that the first one doesn't. The reason is conditions can access outputs of actions that are above them. Because the workflow is sequential, this script is not aware of this action, but this condition is not aware of this action, but this condition is. So this one will be able to reference the run script output. So I can just easily select it from my action parameters list. And then I have 2 different variables. The first one is outcome, which is a variable that all actions support, not just scripts, but any action that a workflow produces will have an outcome, which is a Boolean value of yes or no. It determines if the step was able to execute. If there's a problem with that step, I can easily evaluate it in my condition and react to it. Scripts are a lot more powerful because they let me check specific custom values that the script returns. So in this case, I'm checking if I was able to collect the build number, then I can mark this system as provision, and then I know that this is configured correctly. Now, let's go through a more complex workflow. In this case, what I'm trying to accomplish with this workflow is auto-remediation. I have a service that is critical for me called PW service. And I want that all my systems within the scope critical workstations have this PW service always active, always running. So the first thing I do is I make sure that I scope this workflow to this service by using the correct service name. I only care about this service. And then I care about this workstation. If there's any other service that stops, or the system is not part of my critical workstations, I still care, but I'm not going to perform critical auto-remediation. I'm going to just tag it as to review, priority 2 in this case, and then what I'm going to do is jump into the tags section, and then you can see quickly here on the tags, I have 2 systems that were marked with priority 2, so I can see which systems were tagged by this workflow with priority 2. Now, if the service is PW service and this is a critical workstation, then I'm going to use the built-in action that is only available for service stop triggers, which is start the stop service. Then I create a custom script that it will check if the PW service started and report back. And the way it does it is by this PW service started output variable. So what I'm doing on the next condition is, if the outcome of the start-stop service is no, means that this one failed, or the PW service was not able to start, and that's reported back through the script, then I will increment a custom field that is counting how many times this service has stopped. And this is another way, this is a way of setting custom fields through the workflow action. If this is the case, I also want to send an email to my IT department. And this is a very, very interesting thing we just added, which is it's a way of using variables in emails. So you can create custom emails that will be dynamically evaluated at runtime. So when this workflow executes, if this steps runs, it will check what's the system name. And in this case, I'm incrementing a custom field value, and from the email, I'm reading it. It's very simple to use. So all I need to do is, well, as you see here, we have a little hint. It says type hi team, the service, and then I just type the hash key, and then it will open a panel here where I can just use my keyboard to navigate through it. And then let's say I use this online. I can say the system is online, for example, or use any other of the variables that we have available in conditions. So you have the same amount of variables that you have in conditions, also including reporting any script outputs or outcomes that you have. So it's a very, very powerful thing to report, build complex emails and send it back. Yeah, I guess that's covering most of the. Yeah, that's pretty much it for workflows. Let's see if anyone has a question.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. We did have quite a few questions. Thank you very much, everyone, for the questions. You can all reference them from the Q&A button on the webinar. You can look under the Answered tab. You should be able to see the questions and answers from anyone.
Okay, we have a question here from Gary. What defines what high CPU usage is? That is configured at the agent level. So basically, at the agent, you configure certain policies for notifications. You can define the threshold for when a high CPU, when the CPU is considered high CPU, and that will report back to the server. If high CPU is detected based on the agent configuration, and you have a workflow configured to capture high CPU notifications, which is also active, then the workflow will execute. Bart is asking if the workflows and scripts that we are showing in the demo will be available. These are not available at the moment. I just set them up for the demo, but if you think they're useful, just let us know. Just send us an email, feedback@pulseway.com, and we'll be happy to add more workflows, more scripts. We're very interested to see what you think of built-in capabilities, which scripts you think we need to add, which workflows we think you need to add. So please, again, Pulseway, feedback@pulseway.com is the email address. James is asking if a custom field value can be set through the web interface. James, this is coming very soon. we are at the moment we support only scripts and workflows, but this is coming like very, very, very soon. It's the last thing that we need to do to tie custom fields nicely. You will be able to do it through the computer details page.
And I would add as well, Nicholas, that these custom fields will be available to the mobile apps very soon as well, under the system details, just as they're available now on the web app, and you will be able to edit them from the mobile app too.
I think another important thing to mention is that we're also working on reports for custom fields. I think that will be very useful.
Yeah, that's a good mention, Nicholas. So we're gonna alter the asset report template alongside with the asset information for each systems. You will be able to add any custom fields that you want to be included in that report. And we're also creating a custom field template report that only reports on our custom fields alone. So you'll be able to select which custom fields do you want to be included in the report and what's the scope of the report, maybe an organization or a specific scope or a group. And then a report will be generated to include only those custom fields for each system in the scope.
So Bart is also asking about what's the benefit of workflows if you can already monitor different services using policies. Why would you use workflows? And if you have to create dozens of workflows to monitor different services. No, this is not the case. Think about it as an extension to your notifications that are already there. The reason behind workflows is so you can act upon those notifications you receive. If there's a problem with workflows, you can create custom execution paths to auto-remediate those issues. It's not so much for reporting. You can report through emails and build complex text. You can do that. But think about it more as a way of automatically solve the problems. That you have some certain scripts that can run. You can perform different, based on conditions, you can opt in to run a script or another. So you don't have to do it yourself manually. So you will still be able to receive notifications as you are right now. That will not change. There's no changes to that. But now you will be able to hook into that and react upon it. So basically auto-remediate any issues that you experience.
You see, Bob has a question about can we access the outcome of an action in an email?
Yeah, definitely. I can show you. I can show you now. For example, let's create a new action. Start service. And then let's move this action here. So now this email should have access to the output of start service, the outcome. So this start service, let me make this a bit smaller. This start service action will execute and then will either be successful or not. And I can access the outcome from emails as well as I can do from conditions. I can create a custom condition to evaluate the outcome of any action that I have available in the workflows. And again, for scripts, you can also reference the output variables that you return.
Great, thanks. And John has asked, any plans to add a feature that can trigger a report to send when a certain condition is met?
Yeah, we don't have it yet, but that's a very good idea.
There's also a trend of questions asking for storage space to upload certain applications to Pulseway, and then you can reference them through scripts. Right now, we don't have this functionality. However, you can automate the download and installation of these files using scripts. Obviously, it's a bit more cumbersome. We will think on how we can improve on this. However, this could be scripted directly through Pulseway.
So does anybody have any more questions? Oh, yes.
I see, Dustin, you're having an issue with your notifications. We'll have a look at that right away.
We seem to have saturated most of the questions that have been asked. Thank you everyone for joining.
Great. Again, if you have any feedback, please send us an email at feedback@pulseway.com, or with any scripts that you would like to see, any workflows that you would like to see, or any general feedback about this.
Okay, and we will be sending a recording of this webinar to everybody in the next day or so. Okay, thank you for attending, and hope you found it helpful. And thank you to Nicholas and to Paul for helping out. And Nicholas for that great presentation. And we hope to see you again soon. Thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thanks, bye-bye.